Our planet is full of contrasts. In one place, the Earth is heated to its absolute limit. In another, the ocean is slowly swallowing the land. And somewhere else, people have learned to survive where it would seem impossible. Some of these places are stunningly beautiful, while others make you seriously think about the future. Hello, I'm Sam, and this is Go A.T.W. Today I have prepared for you a selection of places that are hard to call ordinary. Let's begin. Where is the line between our planet and something truly alien? Sometimes, you don't need to look through a telescope to see it. You just have to visit one of the most extreme places on Earth. Imagine a landscape where the air stings with every breath. The ground is painted in vivid, almost unnatural colors, and you can feel the very breath of the planet beneath your feet. Everything around you looks like a set from a science fiction movie, but this place is real. Welcome to the Danakil Depression in Ethiopia. It's located in a unique geological zone where three tectonic plates meet. They continue to slowly pull apart, stretching the Earth's crust and making it unusually thin here. As a result, heat from the planet's interior escapes almost directly to the surface. The Danakil sits roughly 125 meters, or about 410 feet, below sea level, and is considered one of the lowest and hottest places on Earth. In the summer, temperatures here regularly soar above 60 degrees Celsius, or 140 degrees Fahrenheit. During this period, being in the Danakil without specialized preparation can be life-threatening. One of the most impressive spots in the region is the A.T.W volcano. Its name translates to the Smoking Mountain. It's one of the few volcanoes on Earth that has a persistent lava lake in its crater. In the evening, as the heat eases, curious tourists make their way up onto the volcano's surface, and if they're lucky, an incredible natural fireworks show unfolds before their eyes in the form of bubbling molten lava. But if A.T.W is associated with fire, the Dalal area looks completely different. Here, vivid yellows, greens, and oranges dominate. These colors are created by sulfur, various salts, and minerals. The water in this place often has extremely high acidity. In some zones, the pH level can be close to 0 or even lower, making the environment virtually uninhabitable for most forms of life. But what's incredible is that even in these unbelievably harsh conditions, scientists are finding living microorganisms. For many tourists, it comes as a surprise to see a large salt lake not far from this spot. This is Lake Assal. Sometimes you can spot camels, lizards, and even birds near it. This area is home to the semi-nomadic Afar people, who have been harvesting salt by hand for centuries. Working in the extreme heat, they cut uniform slabs out of the earth and transport them by camel caravan. This scene has remained virtually unchanged for hundreds of years. It demonstrates just how capable humans are of adapting to even the harshest conditions. Despite its unusual beauty, the Danakil remains a dangerous place. Geologically, this region continues to change. Scientists believe that over millions of years, the rift may fill with water, and a new sea will emerge here. The next place in our lineup can't help but make you wonder, what does a person feel when the ocean creeps closer to their home day by day? What is it like to know that your quiet, secluded little slice of paradise is gradually going to be completely submerged? For some people, news about climate change is just information noise. For others, it's an everyday reality. The place I'm about to tell you about is a small nation called Tuvalu, located in the Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and Australia. These 9 islands, scattered over a vast distance, are hard to spot on a map, and their total land area is only about 26 square kilometers, or 10 square miles. Around 9,500 people live here. Tuvalu's most defining feature is its elevation. The average height of the land is roughly 2 meters, about 6.5 feet above sea level. That means almost the entire country lies literally at the ocean's edge. The highest point here doesn't stand out against the landscape. It's simply a patch of ground that, for now, remains dry. At first glance, Tuvalu looks like paradise. Turquoise water, white sand, palm trees. But beneath that beauty lies fragility. The entire country sits on a coral foundation shaped by nature over thousands of years. It's well known that global sea levels are rising slowly, just a few millimeters per year, which might seem harmless at first. In practice, things are far less rosy, because salt water is literally seeping deep into the islands and mixing with underground freshwater reserves. As a result, the local population has trouble accessing drinking water, and agriculture suffers as well, since the soil gradually deteriorates. During high tides, water overflows the shoreline and floods areas that were once considered safe. The country's future raises serious questions. According to some forecasts, by the end of the century, almost the entire territory of the nation could be underwater. This doesn't mean instant disappearance, but it makes life increasingly difficult. So, you might ask, what will happen to the locals? Already today, Tuvalu is cooperating with Australia on a plan for the gradual relocation of its citizens. Agreements with other countries are also being pursued in parallel. In essence, Tuvalu is steadily preparing for its complete disappearance, and is even creating a digital version of the country. That is, the government plans to preserve its cultural heritage, documents, and state structures in a virtual form. There have probably been no precedents like this in history. Literally all of the country's territories are being digitized, 3D copies are being created, and cultural objects are being archived. That way, the water will inevitably swallow this patch of land over time, but it won't be able to wash away the memory. On the border of 3 South American countries stands a mountain that looks less like a mountain and more like a gigantic stone island frozen in the sky. Its sheer cliffs rise almost vertically, while the summit disappears into the clouds like the deck of a massive ship. From a distance, it feels as if this place is a separate world, cut off from the rest of Earth. This is Mount Roraima. Roraima is one of the most famous tepuis, ancient tabletop mountains of the Guyana highlands. These formations are considered among the oldest geological structures on Earth, with an estimated age of about 2 billion years. Long ago, this region was a vast plateau, but millions of years of rain and wind slowly eroded the rock, leaving behind isolated stone islands with flat tops. Mount Roraima rises to about 2,810 meters, and the summit plateau covers roughly 35 square kilometers. What makes it even more unusual is that the borders of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana meet here. A small stone marker at the top marks the exact point where the 3 countries intersect. For the local Pamukkale people, this mountain has long been a sacred place. They called it the House of the Gods. According to legend, Roraima is the stump of a giant tree that once stood at the center of the world and produced all the fruits of the earth. The first successful ascent of the mountain was made only in 1884, when a British expedition discovered a natural rock ramp that allowed them to climb to the summit. Stories from explorers who visited this mysterious place later inspired Arthur Conan Doyle while writing his famous novel, The Lost World. In the story, an isolated plateau hides a prehistoric world where ancient creatures still survive. In the early 20th century, such an idea didn't seem entirely impossible. The summit of Roraima was still largely unexplored. Even today, the plateau feels otherworldly. Its surface is far from flat. Black stone towers, strange rock formations, deep cracks, and small canyons cover the landscape. Because the mountain rises directly from the humid Amazon rainforest, clouds constantly cling to its summit. Rain falls here almost every day. Water gathers into streams that spill over the cliffs as dozens of waterfalls, some disappearing into the mist long before reaching the ground. This isolation has created a unique ecosystem. Many plants and animals found here exist nowhere else on Earth. Some plants have even evolved to become carnivorous, trapping insects to survive in the nutrient-poor soil. One of the most unusual inhabitants of the plateau is a tiny black frog. It isn't very good at jumping, so evolution gave it a different escape strategy. When threatened, the frog curls into a ball and rolls between rocks like a tiny rubber marble. Today, Mount Roraima has become one of South America's most iconic natural destinations. Expeditions and trekking groups travel here every year. The journey to the summit takes several days and leads through savannas, jungle trails, and mountain paths. And when the clouds finally part beneath your feet, the feeling is unforgettable. Standing on this ancient stone plateau, you realize that the world below suddenly feels very far away. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word France? The Eiffel Tower, cozy cafes, the aroma of fresh croissants. But there's a place in this country where an ancient castle stands, as if lifted straight from the pages of a fairy tale, mesmerizing you with its mysterious beauty and grandeur. It's absolutely fascinating to watch how, thanks to the unique tidal patterns in this area, the peninsula transforms into a true island twice a day. Doesn't that sound just like a fairy tale? So, welcome to Mont Saint-Michel. It is located off the northwestern coast of France, in Normandy, where the Couesnon River meets the English Channel. The Bay of Mont Saint-Michel experiences some of the most powerful tides in Europe. At low tide, the water recedes for dozens of kilometers, exposing an enormous expanse of sand and silt. A few hours later, it comes rushing back, flooding everything around it. The difference between water levels can reach 14 to 15 meters. That's comparable to the height of a 4-story building. When the water rises, the rock becomes completely surrounded by the sea. It is this very natural phenomenon that made Mont Saint-Michel so special. The story of this place begins in the 8th century. According to legend, the Archangel Michael appeared to Bishop Aubert and commanded him to build a church on the rock. Aubert dismissed it as just a dream, so the Archangel appeared to him again and, to make his point, tapped the bishop on the head with his heavenly finger. As a result, the order from the higher powers was carried out, and a church was built on the summit, which over time grew into a magnificent abbey. Oh, these legends, the things people come up with. Then, in the 10th century, Benedictine monks arrived here. They were the ones who began the large-scale construction, transforming the rock into a complex architectural ensemble. They had to build under extremely difficult conditions: limited space, strong winds, unstable ground. The result was a unique, multi-level complex. One of the most impressive parts is La Merveille, which translates to the miracle or the marvel. This is a 13th century Gothic structure with a cloister, halls, and monastic quarters. It all quite literally grows out of the rock, creating the feeling that the building is simply an extension of it. At the very top rises a spire with a statue of the Archangel Michael. The statue is covered in gold leaf and stands more than 150 meters above sea level. It seems to keep watch over everything happening below. Mont Saint-Michel wasn't just a religious center. It was also a powerful fortress. During the 100 Years' War, the English were never able to capture it. Nature played a decisive role in its defense. Quicksand and the rapid tides made any storming attempt practically impossible. Just imagine, a massive army is trying to seize the fortress, and then, all of a sudden, it's completely swept away by water. It sounds just like a biblical story, but there's no miracle here, just a natural phenomenon. Mont Saint-Michel wasn't always renowned as a sacred place. There was a dark chapter in its history as well. After the French Revolution, the abbey was turned into a prison. Political prisoners were held here. Yes, it's hard to believe, but this fairy tale, astonishing place served as a prison for around 70 years. This only stopped in the 19th century, when restoration work began. Today, Mont Saint-Michel is one of the most visited sites in France. Millions of tourists come here every year. The narrow streets, ancient walls, and the view of the ocean create the sensation of traveling through time. This historic monument is now listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In the southwest of Australia, there is a lake that looks as if someone spilled a giant pool of strawberry syrup in the middle of a forest. Its water is bright pink, and this is not an optical illusion, not a trick of the light, and certainly not photo editing. The place is called Lake Hillier. The lake lies on Middle Island, the largest island of the Recherche archipelago. From above, the scene looks almost surreal. A narrow strip of dense eucalyptus forest, then the bright pink surface of the lake, and just a few dozen meters away, the deep blue waters of the Indian Ocean. What's even more remarkable is that the water stays pink even when collected in a bottle. Scientists debated the cause for many years. Today it's believed that the color results from a combination of high salinity and microscopic organisms. Among them is the algae Dunaliella salina, which produces reddish pigments. When these microorganisms multiply in large numbers, the lake takes on its distinctive pink color. The lake is relatively small, about 600 meters long, but its intense color makes it stand out dramatically on aerial photographs. The water is also extremely salty, nearly as salty as the Dead Sea. Because of this, floating in the lake is surprisingly easy. Despite its fame, Lake Hillier remains difficult to reach. The island is uninhabited, and most visitors see the lake from small planes or helicopters that fly over the archipelago. From the air, the contrast between the pink water, green forest, and dark ocean is truly striking. If you have ever seen photographs of enormous stone pillars rising out of a sea of mist, there is a good chance they were taken in a place called Zhangjiajie Scenic Area. This landscape lies within Zhangjiajie National Forest Park in China, and it is widely considered one of the most unusual natural environments on the planet. The first impression is difficult to put into words. Imagine hundreds, or rather thousands, of towering stone columns. Some rise more than 300 meters into the air. They stand apart from one another like gigantic towers, while clouds and mist constantly drift between them. At times, it almost seems as though the peaks are floating. These landscapes famously inspired the creators of the film Avatar. After the movie's release, one of the pillars even received the unofficial nickname Avatar Hallelujah Mountain. What makes this landscape particularly fascinating is that it wasn't formed by volcanic eruptions or earthquakes, as many people might assume. The process was much slower. Millions of years ago, this area was a vast sandstone plateau. Over time, water, wind, and temperature changes gradually eroded the rock. Softer layers wore away faster, while the harder sections remained. Eventually, the plateau was carved into the towering columns we see today. In a way, nature sculpted them from a single massive block of stone. Today, Zhangjiajie is one of the most visited locations in the park. Visitors can reach it in a rather unusual way, by taking the Bailong Elevator, one of the tallest outdoor elevators in the world. Built directly into the cliff, it carries passengers 326 meters upward in about 90 seconds. When the elevator doors open, the famous landscape appears immediately before your eyes. From there, visitors follow walking paths and viewing platforms along the cliffs. Some of the trails run right along the edges of steep drop-offs. On clear days, dozens of stone towers stretch out toward the horizon. When fog rolls in, the scenery changes completely. The pillars appear and disappear in the clouds, creating the illusion that they are suspended in mid-air. The view is especially breathtaking at sunrise, when the first rays of sunlight slowly break through the mist and illuminate the tops of the cliffs. Despite its popularity, the park remains a protected natural reserve. The entire region is listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is home to many rare species of plants and animals. Interestingly, the pillars themselves are still changing. Erosion continues to shape them slowly, meaning that thousands of years from now this landscape may look very different. Sometimes the most fantastical landscapes on Earth are completely real. Imagine a place that looks less like a natural formation and more like the creation of a painter's imagination. A massive white hillside resembling soft clouds or piles of cotton, decorated with terraces of turquoise pools filled with clear water. This place is called Pamukkale, which translates from Turkish as Cotton Castle. It lies in southwestern Turkey in the province of Denizli Province and is considered one of the most remarkable natural wonders in the country. Despite its name, there is of course no cotton here. The dazzling white color comes from a type of limestone called travertine. For thousands of years, hot mineral springs, with temperatures ranging from 30 to 100 degrees Celsius, have flowed down the slope. As the water moves across the surface, it deposits calcium carbonate, gradually building the famous terraces and shallow pools. To protect the delicate travertine formations, visitors are not allowed to walk on them with shoes. Instead, people walk barefoot along designated paths. However, the site has not always been so carefully protected. During the 1980s, hotels and resorts were built close to the terraces, and tourism increased rapidly. The heavy human presence began damaging the fragile formations, and the once brilliant white surface started to darken. Fortunately, conservation efforts changed the situation. In 1988, Pamukkale was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and many of the nearby hotels were demolished to restore the natural environment. Today, the area is carefully protected, and strict regulations help preserve its beauty. The best time to visit Pamukkale is in spring or early autumn when the weather is comfortable. During the summer months, the heat can make exploring the terraces quite exhausting. Imagine drifting in complete darkness along a quiet underground river. Everything around you is silent. Then suddenly, thousands of tiny lights appear above your head, like a star-filled night sky. But this magical sight isn't in space, it's underground. On New Zealand's North Island lies the famous Waitomo Caves, one of the most extraordinary cave systems in the world. The glowing lights come from the larvae of a rare insect species called Arachnocampa luminosa, which lives only in New Zealand. These glowworms attach themselves to the cave ceiling and create delicate traps. Thin, sticky threads hang down from their nests, sometimes reaching half a meter in length. Their soft blue light attracts small insects. Drawn by the glow, the insects fly closer, and the moment they touch one of the sticky threads, they become trapped. The larva then slowly reels the thread back in and eats its catch. Interestingly, the hungrier the glowworm is, the brighter it glows. For humans, these creatures are completely harmless. However, they are extremely sensitive to noise. If visitors start talking too loudly, the lights slowly fade and the cave returns to darkness. Tours through the caves take place by boat, as parts of the underground passages are filled with water. As the boat glides silently through the tunnels, visitors watch what looks like an entire underground sky. Although local Maori people had known about these caves for centuries, they were first thoroughly explored in 1887. One can only imagine the amazement of the early explorers when they first witnessed this glowing phenomenon. Now imagine a place where the cold is so intense that metal becomes brittle and even a simple breath can sting your lungs with freezing air. In these extreme conditions stands Vostok Station, one of the harshest inhabited places on Earth. The station lies deep within Antarctica, more than 1,000 kilometers from the nearest coast. Around it stretches an endless frozen desert, with no cities, no roads, and no familiar landmarks. Winter temperatures regularly fall below -70 degrees Celsius. On July 21, 1983, thermometers recorded -89.2 degrees Celsius, the lowest natural air temperature ever measured on Earth. Summer here lasts from December to February. Even then, temperatures remain far below freezing. It is during this short window that supplies, fuel, food, and equipment are delivered. In winter, a small team of scientists remains almost completely isolated from the outside world for months. Aircraft cannot land, and snowstorms make travel impossible. But why work in such extreme conditions? The answer lies deep beneath the ice. Directly below the station is Lake Vostok, a massive subglacial lake buried under nearly 4 kilometers of ice. It has been isolated from the surface for millions of years. For scientists, this lake is an extraordinary discovery. The ice layers above it preserve ancient samples of Earth's atmosphere, like pages of a history book recording past climates. By studying these layers, researchers can learn what Earth's climate was like tens or even hundreds of thousands of years ago. There is also the possibility that unique microorganisms may exist in the lake itself, surviving in complete darkness and isolation. Studying such life could help scientists understand how organisms might survive in extreme environments, perhaps even on icy moons in our solar system. Life at the station has never been easy. The altitude is over 3,500 meters above sea level, which means the air is thin and oxygen levels are low. New arrivals often experience dizziness and fatigue. The station has also faced serious challenges. One of the most dramatic occurred in 1982, when a fire destroyed much of the power equipment. One person died, and the remaining crew had to survive the winter with limited electricity and heating. Over time, it became clear that the original Soviet-era buildings were no longer suitable. Many structures gradually became buried under snow, and people had to move between them through tunnels dug in the drifts. Because of this, a completely new polar complex was built in the 2000s and 20s, and the modern station was officially commissioned in 2024. Unlike the old buildings, the new structures stand on high supports so that snow cannot bury them over time. Inside are living quarters, laboratories, medical facilities, and modern life support systems. Today, about 15 people stay during winter, and up to 35 in summer. Vostok Station is more than just a research base. It is a place where people endure some of the most extreme conditions on Earth in order to better understand the planet we live on. In the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of the Mexican state of Nayarit, lies an archipelago called Islas Marietas. At first glance, these rocky islands look fairly ordinary, but one of them hides a place that can easily be missed if you pass by on a boat. It is known as Playa del Amor, or the Hidden Beach. From above, a large circular opening in the rock allows sunlight to pour into a secluded sandy cove below. The light illuminates the golden sand and clear water, creating the feeling that a small tropical beach has been tucked inside a giant stone chamber. Researchers believe this unusual formation may have been created by military bomb tests conducted in the early 20th century. One of the explosions likely formed a large crater, which over time was shaped by natural erosion into the beach seen today. Visitors reach the beach by swimming through a 20 to 25 meter sea tunnel, and the trip is only possible when tides are low enough. Despite the difficulty of reaching it, the Hidden Beach has become one of the most photographed locations in Mexico. The surrounding waters are also rich with marine life. Dolphins, sea turtles, and even humpback whale can sometimes be seen nearby. Have you ever seen goats climbing trees? At first glance, it looks like a joke or something generated by artificial intelligence, but in Morocco, it's a perfectly normal sight. The reason is a remarkable tree called Argania spinosa. This species is perfectly adapted to hot, dry climates and thrives in regions where many other plants struggle to survive. For goats, however, these trees are a feast. They climb onto the branches to eat the leaves and fruits, seemingly unfazed by the thorns. Sometimes, several goats can be seen balancing in a single tree. The fruit of the argan tree is also highly valued by people. Inside each fruit are hard kernels used to produce argan oil, one of the most prized vegetable oils in the world. It is widely used in cooking as well as in cosmetics. There is a popular myth that people collect the kernels after they pass through the digestive system of goats. In reality, this method is rarely used today. Most often, goats simply eat the pulp and spit out the hard seeds. Argan forests are so unique that the region where they grow has been designated a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. So if you ever travel through Morocco and see goats perched in the branches of trees, don't be surprised. It's not a trick for tourists, just another ordinary day in one of the most unusual landscapes on Earth. Sometimes nature has a remarkable way of correcting human mistakes, and occasionally the result becomes something so unusual that it turns into a real landmark. One of the most striking examples can be found in the desert of Nevada, the famous Fly Geyser. Today it looks almost surreal. Bright mineral towers constantly spraying hot water into the air, surrounded by vivid green terraces that resemble a small oasis in the middle of the desert. But this strange phenomenon didn't form naturally. The story began in 1916, when a well was drilled here. According to some accounts, people were searching for water for agriculture. According to others, they hoped to find oil. Instead, the drill unexpectedly struck a geothermal pocket. The well was eventually abandoned, but the hot water underground continued to search for a way to escape. Decades later, the pressure finally forced the water upward through the old drilling channel, and it burst onto the surface. Gradually, mineral deposits began to accumulate around the opening. Over time, these deposits formed unusual travertine cones, creating what now looks like a natural fountain in the desert. Today, the geyser continuously releases hot water with a temperature close to 90 degrees Celsius, and the formation itself has grown to about 2 meters in height. The vivid shades of red, orange, and green come from thermophilic algae and bacteria that thrive in the hot, mineral-rich water. The geyser sits on the private land of Fly Ranch, and for many years it was closed to visitors. Today, however, the site can be seen during organized tours. Perhaps the most fascinating thing is that the geyser is still changing. Mineral deposits continue to build up year after year, meaning Fly Geyser slowly keeps growing, like a living sculpture created jointly by human accident and the forces of nature. Imagine waking up in the morning, not to the sound of an alarm clock, but to a gentle tapping at the window. You walk closer, and suddenly a long neck and curious giraffe face appear outside the glass. It looks inside as if checking whether breakfast is ready, and most likely, it's hoping for a treat. For guests of the famous Giraffe Manor, this is an everyday experience. This unusual boutique hotel stands on the outskirts of Nairobi, surrounded by green hills and forest covering about 12 hectares. From the outside, it looks like an elegant colonial-style mansion with ivy climbing the walls and a red-tiled roof. The house was originally built in 1932, when wealthy Europeans traveling through East Africa on safari used such residences as hunting lodges. But the real story of this place began in the 1970s, when conservationists Jock Leslie Melville and Betty Leslie Melville purchased the estate. They dedicated their lives to protecting one of the rarest giraffe subspecies in the world, the Rothschild's giraffe. At that time, only a few hundred individuals remained. The couple founded a conservation project here and began raising giraffes before relocating them to protected reserves. The first resident of the estate was an orphaned giraffe named Daisy. She unintentionally started the tradition that would later make the manor famous. The giraffes quickly grew accustomed to people and began peeking through the windows of the house. Today, the mansion has been transformed into a small, luxury hotel with just 12 rooms, creating the atmosphere of a private countryside estate. Yet its most unusual feature remains unchanged. Giraffes roam freely across the property and frequently approach the building. Every morning and evening, they stretch their long necks toward the windows of the dining room or guest bedrooms, patiently hoping for a special snack. The experience is so unusual that many visitors say breakfast with giraffes becomes one of the most memorable moments of their lives. And the animals rarely hurry away. Sometimes they stand by the window for quite a while, calmly waiting for another treat. Nearby, the Giraffe Center continues the work of protecting and breeding Rothschild's giraffes. Thanks to programs like this, their population has gradually increased, and today, they can once again be found in several national parks across Kenya. Although giraffes are the undisputed stars of the estate, they are not the only animals living here. Antelopes, wild boars, and numerous tropical bird species inhabit the surrounding forests, and occasionally, even small predators pass through the area. Over time, the manor has become one of the most famous unusual hotels in the world. Musicians, actors, and travelers from across the globe have stayed here. Yet no matter who arrives at Giraffe Manor, mornings tend to begin the same way, with the long shadow of a giraffe outside the window and the quiet sound of hooves on the terrace. At first glance, these scenes may look like the result of complex visual effects, but what you're seeing is pure reality. No CGI, no artificial tricks, just nature itself. And indeed, as the horizon line disappears and the mirror-like surface of water merges seamlessly with the sky, it feels as if reality loses its boundaries and turns into an optical illusion. This is the Uyuni Salt Flat, a dried-up salt lake located in southeastern Bolivia. It is considered the largest salt flat in the world and plays a vital role in the region. Every year, tens of thousands of tons of rock salt are extracted here, and its total area exceeds 10,000 square kilometers. According to experts, enormous reserves of salt are concentrated in the Uyuni region, while beneath its surface lie rich brines with a high concentration of lithium. This metal is a key component in modern battery production, and Uyuni is considered one of the largest potential sources of lithium on the planet. For this reason, the importance of the region goes far beyond the food industry. Salt here is not only mined, but also used in construction. Yes, you heard that right. In Bolivia, an entire hotel has been built from salt blocks. It's a real salt palace, where almost every guest secretly tries to lick the walls. Leave a like if this is the first time you've heard about this hotel. For most of the year, Uyuni looks like a vast, snow-white desert, covered in intricate salt patterns. But the real magic begins during the rainy season, which lasts from November to March. A thin layer of water transforms the surface into a gigantic mirror, reflecting the sky and creating landscapes so surreal they are almost impossible to distinguish from an illusion. If you think all natural masterpieces are found on the Earth's surface, You're mistaken. Deep underground, hidden from curious eyes, lie extraordinary formations of gigantic crystals. They are so magnificent that it's hard to believe what you're seeing. Words often spoken by the few who have been lucky enough to visit this incredible place. Meet the Naica Cave. It is located in the Mexican state of Chihuahua. The cave was discovered completely by accident in the year 2000 by 2 miners. Imagine an ordinary workday. The miners were drilling a tunnel at a depth of about 300 meters when the drilling suddenly stopped. Silence followed. They stood frozen in awe at what appeared before them when the light of a flashlight entered the underground chamber. Beams reflected in every direction, as if the space were filled with enormous shards of shattered glass. Unfortunately, the chance to witness this breathtaking beauty with your own eyes is reserved only for specially trained scientific expeditions. Ordinary tourists are not allowed inside the cave. These crystals are a variety of gypsum known as selenite. Their formation was made possible by unique geological conditions. The town of Naica, where the cave is located, lies on an ancient fault with a magma chamber beneath it. Heated magma warmed underground water, creating ideal conditions for crystal growth. This process took hundreds of thousands of years. Over time, true giants emerged. The largest crystal measures 11 meters in length and 4 meters in diameter, but its weight is the most astonishing part. Just imagine, it weighs around 55 tons, roughly equivalent to 11 adult African elephants. The Naica Cave can hardly be called welcoming. Without special protective suits and equipment, a person can remain inside for no more than 5 minutes. And that's no surprise. It's hotter than the Sahara and more humid than the Amazon. Average temperatures reach 50 degrees Celsius, with humidity levels around 90%, a rare and extremely dangerous combination. Even researchers wearing protective gear are allowed to stay inside for no more than 40 minutes. Otherwise, the consequences can be fatal. Scientists often experience serious physical distress after exiting the cave, rapid heartbeat, and oxygen deprivation. This environment leaves no room for error. Despite these dangers, the Naica Cave is a fascinating subject for scientific research. Inside the crystals, researchers have discovered unique bacteria that had never been encountered before. This discovery may help scientists better understand life in extreme conditions, and possibly even life on other planets. It's clear that scientists are racing against time, and for good reason. Soon, all of this beauty will once again become inaccessible to humans. Currently, water is still being pumped out of the cave, but prolonged exposure to air can damage the crystals. For this reason, the pumps will eventually be turned off. As a result, the cave will once again fill with hot water, returning the crystals to their natural environment, where they can continue to grow. And all that will remain for us are these remarkable images and the invaluable results of years of scientific research. When we hear the words tropical island, our imagination usually paints a familiar picture: dazzling white sand, turquoise water, palm trees, and the sound of waves. Somewhere in the shade, colorful parrots call out to one another, while silhouettes of monkeys move through the jungle. According to every tourist stereotype, this is exactly what paradise in the middle of the ocean should look like. But this island in the Bahamas shatters all expectations because it's home to pigs. They freely roam the beaches, bask in the sun, and fearlessly enter the ocean, swimming out to greet boats filled with tourists. These animals have become the island's main attraction, turning an ordinary tropical island into one of the strangest and most recognizable locations on Earth. This unusual place is located in the Bahamas, within the Exuma archipelago, surrounded by dozens of small coral islands scattered across the crystal-clear waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Its official name is Big Major Cay, though around the world it is better known by a much simpler name: Pig Island. The island is uninhabited by humans and has no hotels or permanent infrastructure. The only way to reach it is by boat from nearby islands. This isolation is exactly what allowed Big Major K to become home to its most unexpected residents, the pigs that made this corner of the Bahamas truly unique. There are several theories explaining how the pigs ended up here. None of them have been officially confirmed, but all sound plausible, which only makes the story more intriguing. According to one of the most popular versions, sailors or pirates once deliberately left pigs on the uninhabited island as living food supplies, planning to return later. For unknown reasons, they never did, and the pigs adapted to life in the wild. Another theory suggests that the pigs arrived here after a shipwreck. The animals were being transported by sea, the vessel was damaged, and the pigs managed to swim to the nearest island. As you can see, they are surprisingly good swimmers. A more modern explanation claims that local residents or farmers brought the pigs here, using the island as a temporary holding area. Or perhaps the island was intentionally turned into a tourist attraction. Either way, the truth may never be known. Some places on our planet can truly be called terrifying, and one of them is the Darvaza gas crater. For more than 50 years, this ominous pit has been continuously spewing flames, both frightening and mesmerizing curious visitors. Darvaza is located in Turkmenistan, in the heart of the Karakum Desert. It measures about 60 meters in diameter and roughly 20 meters in depth. The crater looks especially dramatic at night, when darkness falls and the glowing fire illuminates the desert with an almost surreal intensity. Locals often refer to this landmark as the gateway to hell, which is hardly surprising. Visually, it seems to match certain religious depictions of the underworld. In reality, the crater has nothing to do with mysticism. The story began in 1971, when geologists discovered natural gas at this site. During drilling operations, an accident occurred. It turned out that beneath the upper layers of soil, there was a large underground cavity. At some point, the ground collapsed, swallowing the drilling equipment and vehicles. Fortunately, despite the dramatic collapse, no lives were lost. You might wonder, how is that possible? The crater burns endlessly today, and it seems impossible that anyone could survive in such conditions. The answer is simple. At the moment of the collapse, nothing was burning yet. The fire came later. Shortly afterward, geologists decided to ignite the crater intentionally, hoping to prevent toxic gas from spreading into the atmosphere and harming people or animals. They expected the fire to burn out within a few days. They were wrong. The crater has been burning ever since, and no one knows exactly when it will stop or how to extinguish it. It may continue to burn for decades to come, posing a serious environmental and economic concern. First, the combustion of such large volumes of gas harms the environment and nearby communities. Second, the natural gas could have been used for the country's needs or generated revenue. Instead, it is simply burning away. Turkmen authorities are still considering possible solutions. For safety reasons, protective barriers have been installed around the site, though they do not stop everyone. One man even dared to descend to the very bottom of the fiery crater. No, it wasn't the lead singer of Rammstein, it was Canadian explorer George Karunis. In 2013, he discovered unique bacteria living at the bottom of the crater, microorganisms that thrive in extreme heat. So Darvaza is not only a spectacle for travelers, but also a subject of scientific interest. High in the mountains of China, where untouched nature once dominated the landscape, a truly futuristic scene is emerging. Places that were once barren slopes and rocky plateaus are now covered with millions of solar panels. From above, they look like endless dark fields, following the contours of the terrain and stretching all the way to the horizon. This is not science fiction. This is the future, already here. Massive solar power plants are being built across different regions of China, especially in the provinces of Guizhou, Gansu, Qinghai, Yunnan, and Sichuan. Mountain slopes, valleys, and plateaus are gradually turning into energy fields capable of capturing sunlight throughout the entire day. Each solar panel consists of photovoltaic cells that convert sunlight into electricity. Individually, they produce relatively small amounts of energy, but when combined into massive arrays, they become powerful sources of electricity. This energy is fed into the national power grid and used to supply cities, factories, transportation systems, and residential areas. As a result, reliance on coal-fired power plants, long the backbone of China's energy sector, is gradually decreasing. The scale of these projects is truly impressive. Some solar farms cover dozens of square kilometers and generate gigawatts of electricity, rivaling traditional power stations. But their impact goes beyond energy production alone. In certain regions, solar panels help reduce soil erosion, retain moisture, and even allow agriculture to be practiced beneath them. This approach is known as solar energy plus agriculture. In this way, China is actively contributing to a transformation of the global energy landscape. There are places on Earth untouched by tourist routes, places without mobile signal, without roads, without access. One of them is a small island in the Bay of Bengal. North Sentinel Island is under special protection, and any approach to its shores is officially forbidden. For those who choose to ignore this ban, the consequences can be fatal. The island is inhabited by one of the most ancient and isolated peoples on the planet, the Sentinelese. They perceive any outsider as a threat and react without hesitation, using spears and bows. History has already recorded tragic cases where attempts at contact ended in death. In 2006, 2 fishermen who illegally approached the island were killed shortly after landing. In 2018, the world was shocked by the death of an American missionary who attempted to establish contact with the tribe despite a direct ban by Indian authorities. He was shot with arrows. These incidents clearly show that for the Sentinelese, any outsider is a danger. Their aggression is not cruelty, it is a survival strategy. For thousands of years, they have lived in complete isolation, and any outside contact could introduce diseases and destroy their way of life. One of the most unusual and mysterious episodes in the island's history, however, was not the result of an intentional invasion, but of pure chance. In 1981, the cargo ship Primrose ran aground on reefs near the island, leaving its crew trapped dangerously close to shore. The sailors watched as armed islanders gathered along the coastline. It was clear that attempting to land would end in tragedy. Fortunately, the crew was evacuated by helicopter, while the ship itself was left behind. Its rusting remains are still visible from the air today. Scientists believe that the ancestors of the Sentinelese settled here tens of thousands of years ago. Since then, their way of life has changed very little. They survive through hunting, fishing, and gathering, using simple tools. We do not know their language. We do not know their myths, beliefs, or social rules. Everything we know comes from rare and distant observations. We literally live in completely different worlds. In one world, there are satellites in orbit, smartphones in our pockets, global communication, and flights across continents in just hours. And only a few dozen kilometers away from the tourist routes of the Andaman Islands lies a tiny patch of land where time seems to have stopped. It's astonishing to realize that these two worlds exist simultaneously. While some discuss artificial intelligence and missions to Mars, others continue to live exactly as humans did thousands of years ago. After a series of failed and dangerous contact attempts, the only possible decision was made: to leave the Sentinelese alone. Not out of indifference, but for their survival. In the modern world, we are the greatest threat to them, not because of weapons, but simply because of our presence. the tribe has no immunity to many common diseases that modern humans barely notice. An ordinary cold, harmless to us, could be deadly for the Sentinelese and potentially wipe out the entire tribe. That is why the Indian government has imposed a strict ban on visiting the island, to protect the Sentinelese from outside influence and to ensure the safety of those who might attempt to enter their territory. Now, imagine a city in the 21st century that isn't a modern metropolis, but rather resembles an enormous garbage dump. The homes in this city, both inside and out, are quite literally overflowing with trash, and all around there's an unbearable stench that you can't escape. This is not a post-apocalyptic movie. This is a real place. The Manshiat Nasser district in Cairo. Yes, we're talking about a neighborhood in the capital of Egypt, often called Garbage City. The garbage collectors, known as the Zabaleen, have been doing a job for decades that the sprawling city would literally drown in waste without. Every day, they collect trash from all over Cairo and bring it back to their district. Virtually all of the trash is sorted by hand. Plastic, metal, glass, and organic waste are separated with astonishing accuracy. The recycling rate reaches up to 80%. That's higher than in many developed countries. But behind this efficiency lies another side. The trash literally passes through people's homes. The ground floors are often warehouses and sorting zones, while families live above. Children help their parents from a very young age. For the Zabaleen, collecting trash isn't a temporary job. It's a way of life passed down from generation to generation. Of course, as you've already gathered, the conditions here are far from comfortable. Heat, dust, pungent odors, and constant contact with waste create health risks, but in spite of that, life goes on. Interestingly, the majority of the residents are Copts, Egyptian Christians, and hidden among the dense, chaotic buildings is something unexpected. Carved into the cliffs of Mokadan Hill are huge cave churches. The most famous is the Church of St. Simon, also called the Cave Church, capable of holding tens of thousands of people. It's one of the most unusual religious sites in the world, and it sits right in the middle of a district that most people would rather overlook. Many also prefer to overlook the fact that the police hardly ever show up in this neighborhood, and all disputes among the Zabaleen are settled by local elders. In this district, you can periodically stumble across dovecotes, but that's not because the locals love keeping these birds as beloved pets. It's just that fried pigeon meat with boiled rice is the #1 dish here, and no smell of waste that saturates Garbage City can spoil their appetite. Without a doubt, every resident of this district would love to get a decent education, live in comfortable conditions, and not have their children sifting through tons of garbage. But unfortunately, only a tiny few manage to change anything. And finally, the last place in my lineup looks almost like a utopia. It's an experimental city in southern India, originally conceived as a space without borders, where people from different countries could live together, undivided by nationality, religion, or social status. Welcome to Auroville. It was founded in 1968 by Mira Alfassa, the spiritual collaborator of the philosopher Sri Aurobindo. The idea was bold, to create an international community where the priorities would not be the economy or politics, but human development and the search for harmony. The project received support from UNESCO and is still considered one of the most unusual social experiments in the world. If you look at the initial master plan of the city, it resembles a galaxy. At the center, the main structure was supposed to sit, with radiating zones around it forming a unified whole. Unfortunately, even after such a long time, this plan has never been fully realized, but the key element was eventually built. This is the Matra Mandir, an extraordinary building that has become the symbol of Auroville. From the outside, it looks like a golden sphere, and inside, it houses a meditation space. At its center is a large optical crystal that a beam of sunlight is directed onto. The atmosphere there truly makes a powerful impression, and many visitors describe it as almost surreal. Today, Around 3,000 people from dozens of countries live in Auroville. It's not a closed community, but getting in and becoming a permanent resident is not so simple. The economic system here differs from what we're used to, but the city doesn't exist entirely without money. Residents have internal accounts, a system of resource distribution is in place, and a number of projects are financed through donations and external support. Many work for the benefit of the community, in education, agriculture, crafts, or technology. The idea is to reduce dependence on personal gain and focus more on collective development. Auroville is often perceived as a city of the future, but the reality is more complex. Here, as in any community, disputes, organizational difficulties, and financial limitations arise. The project is still in the process of development. Nevertheless, this place has something that many modern cities lack: an attempt to fundamentally rethink the very model of society. Auroville is not a perfect world. It's an experiment in which people are trying to figure out whether it's possible to live differently. And would you want to take part in it? Is there any meaning in experiments like this? Or is it just a dead-end attempt to come up with yet another viewpoint, yet another religion, and yet another set of rules? Share your thoughts on this in the comments to the video. Our journey across these extraordinary places has come to an end. Which of these locations would you most like to see with your own eyes? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this adventure, don't forget to leave a like, and I'll see you in the next episode.